Hello again. So this is the 15th episode of the development diary for Fragile Existence, a space strategy / survival / 4X game that I've been working on for around 10 months now. So I built the solar system that I'm going to be using today here. We got the warp-in point at Cork. We've got 3 terrestrial planets and 2 rocky planets. And I've connected them up by the space lanes. You can see some branching points here, so I'll finally show what happens with these kind of things today. And yeah, I've added a star and the temperature got for a nice orange color. We save that and back out. We can drop straight into this new scenario, DevLog 15, always imaginatively titled. And I've done a bit of a refresh of the warp tunnel here, so we got a nice sort of distortion effect. And we can add in, whilst it's loading, a few ships. 1, 2, 3. Let's go with 4. And they're just randomly offset from the center line at the moment. And that offset will be used as we move those ships around the solar system. Okay, so let's imagine we're starting a game here. We're warping into the Yamamoto system. We know there's 5 planets, but that's all we know. Okay, so we've arrived just shy of Cork, 316,000 kilometers out. And I've given myself enough skill points to sort of give these guys a sort of starting amount of skills. So if we give them an engineer and go into the engineering tab and let that engineer learn how to use the ion drive and how to use the cascade drive. So the cascade drive is like the warp drive of my world, I guess, and give each of these engineers those same skills. I probably should, for debug reasons, not necessarily requires this to be done every game, but for now I'm just sort of illustrating what we need. Right, so now that they can all move through warp, in commas, there we can actually assign a target by pressing M, and you see the space lane comes up to show where we can target. And if I set this guy going straight to Cork to investigate the nearby planet, and this guy can head up to Azifia via Cork, and the Galactica can go on a slightly longer journey to Detroit, and finally the Orville can go to, let's go to Celestia. Okay, so this is our starting fleet. Let's pretend, and we can actually focus the camera on any of these ships. Obviously they're all the same model at the moment, and it's a model I've been using since the beginning. I definitely need to get into Blender and make some new models, but I'm obviously focused on getting the gameplay going first. So we can hop between these. We can still focus on planets as well. So we have 2 different types of sort of camera focus systems here. We have the ship-wide focus cameras, which allows some more dynamic angles. And we have the sort of the orbital camera as well. Not necessarily just planets, it's moons, derelict ships, asteroid fields, anything else that will eventually be focuses. We can sort of use the orbit cam to orbit them. Okay, so if we select all these guys, you can see how their waypoint lines are moving them entering into orbit along those lines. It's all spline based navigation, and they've engaged the ion drives here. They were previously using the cascade warp drives, and now they have to use the much slower drives to go around in orbit. So it's a sort of it's basically like the sort of technology we've got today, but sort of a bit more advanced. And you can see here how they're leaving by certain points along the sort of extending outwards from orbit. In the meantime, I believe Axiom has actually reached its final destination. So let's pretend it's going to drop some units down on the ground, the Celeste and the Brutus, and we're going to build a base up here. Maybe we could have took the ship round to there, but we didn't. We chose to drop them there. Perhaps there's mountains or something that will be added eventually, and we can't get past them, or for whatever reason. We're going to choose to drop people there and move them all the way around. In the meantime, we still have these ships moving into position to depart. I've made it so that you can't just warp around a planet. The idea is you do actually have to go via the planets. They are part of the network. I know you're probably thinking, well, I warped in here, why can't I just go straight across to here? I don't really want the game to be like that. I believe strategy needs some sort of choke point. I think you need to be forced to go via these planets. So maybe this is a little slow, but sort of the gameplay speed I was sort of thinking of. You would probably be spending your time investigating this planet rather than necessarily moving on straight away, splitting the fleet. You see how much we've split the fleet here. We're really going all ways that we can. So you can see the warp-in point was over there, and we've now explored core. We're not really colonizing, we're only ever building temporary bases. So the horizon is now moving away. You can see our ground units are up here nearing their destination, and the Orville's just departed as well. You can see how we get the distance in kilometers, 1,000 kilometers as they move apart. If we move to the map, we retain all of that. Well, I didn't bother putting the distance information on here, but as we zoom in we can get a nice tactical view. Okay, so the Axiom should probably be looking after these guys. This guy's about to go to warp, and you'll see the Zephyr symbol will change. This definitely needs a warp sequence, but currently it's just popping in where it should be. I'm undecided whether I'm going to do a full sort of warp conduit type thing, or whether I'll do something a bit tamer. So these guys are currently at the branching point. So you see how the branching point goes out to Celestia and Ion. We could have done a straight path, but we chose to design it so that there's a branching point which offers some sort of strategic value. Obviously not so much here, but maybe there was a space station here or something, and it might attack us if we go the one route. And so you can actually sort of see how these guys have had to slow down to ion speed, and now they're engaging the cascade drive again and setting off on their respective sort of directions. Okay, so we'd normally be looking after these guys. We'd be setting up our little mining installation here, and we got a faulty indicator there. And yeah, so these guys would be building a base, starting to mine some resources, maybe building something. Meantime, we'd be obviously we can pause, so we don't necessarily need to frantically rush around. This guy's about to go to warp. If you zoom out while you're warping, it just sort of covers the distance a little bit quicker, and it slows down as it approaches the next layer. So all of these planets are on separate layers, so it's not actually to scale, so to speak. It's sort of, they're all basically clapped on top of each other, and there's certain maths that have to be done to work out the correct angles for everything to move. And when we come out to this map, as I've talked about in a previous devlog, it's actually a tiny little map. So when you zoom out, you actually zoom in to a miniature. It's all sort of clever sort of camera work. The Orville's just arrived at its next destination, and so we'd probably be thinking about, as we arrive here, setting up some units on the ground. And we can move about here. They'll try to avoid the craters where they can. Maybe we start doing some scans, because you'll be able to do scans from orbit for resources or life sources. And yeah, so obviously the sort of the ground phase is what's next, really, now that I've fleshed out a lot of the space stuff. So the Galactica has arrived here. We do now have a bugged indicator there with the horizon. So around about now we might be thinking, well, the enemy fleet might be coming in from near Cork, and these guys might be under a bit of pressure. We might want to build some like defenses, like turrets or something, to deal with the first wave of alien invaders as they start coming in. Meanwhile, we need to find the warp out points that we'll be able to choose which one we want to take, and that lets us choose which is the next solar system that we head towards. In the meantime, we're trying to get whatever resources we can, and if we do set up any bases, we need to be aware that those bases will need to be taken apart again at some point. So the Galactica is still heading towards Detroit. We head to Detroit, you'll see that's where its ultimate goal is going to end up. And what this guy's doing, we've obviously decided there's nothing at this particular planet. We're free to you know, just move in the orbital plane, and we can set target a bit further away, and you see how it added onto the end of the orbital waypoints. Okay, so the Galactica is now heading towards the next branching point. And you see there's a pathfinding system in play here, so we actually uses a simplified A-star system, so that it actually works out the shortest route from planet to planet or point to point. And you'll see here it's slowing down just so it can make this branch, because using the cascade drive there's no turning, at least that's what I'm rolling with, and it's having to activate the ion drives to make this turn. You can obviously argue there's no reason to make this turn arbitrarily here. We may as well have just done it back at the planet. But let's try to imagine that there's a lot more going on in these in the surrounding area of these planets. And using the solar system editor, we're free to make whatever layouts we please. And the branching points, yes, they may not necessarily seem super useful right now, but they allow us to make sort of tactical strategic choke points and to sort of offer different alternatives to just making a space lane directly between every planet, which is a bit boring. And now we can do something much more elaborate. We can have whole moons in here with branching points that go towards each other, and it can be as complicated as we like. And so I mean, that is really all I have to show for this development diary, but it's been like 5 months of work to get to this point. I practiced with the orbital stuff for a long time, getting that right, and finally moved on to being able to move all the way through the solar system. It's using a spline based movement system that I've been developing for quite some time, and I'm really keen to design things so that it's all very legible. Like it's really easy to just get lost in the detail, and yeah, I guess I'm a bit worried that being able to move around an entire solar system is quite different from something you'd have in Homeworld, where you only have a certain arena of battle and you don't have to worry about things moving around everywhere. I'm trying to do my best to give enough information at sort of your fingertips to be able to see what's going on nice and quickly with these indicators, with showing how far things are away from each other, being able to zoom out to this map. Obviously we're going to have the enemy units on here as well, and you're not necessarily just going to be able to hop from planet to planet like I am currently. You're going to have to discover them before you can actually sort of travel to them, or even, you know, be able to bring up this camera view of the planet. You need to send a ship there, send a scout. You probably send your fastest ships rather than these slow things. But yeah, so this is the game. You're entering in from the warp point, sending your ships out from planet to planet. I feel like this guy might have got stuck. Quite possibly. There are definitely still bugs. And now I'm really keen to get onto the ground bit again, because I've really neglected the grounds. I mean, I barely even really did these rocky planets. I sort of did it in the most basic way I could. And you know, even the terrestrial planets need some fleshing out. They need mountains, they need rivers, they need cities, they need details, forests, different types of ground. We need to be able to build bases, we need to be able to mine resources, scan for things, inject some life into, you know, something that kind of looks all right from a view currently, but, you know, there's nothing to do yet. And so that really is the next stage. Now that the solar system wide gameplay is kind of in play, that's exciting. That means I really can move on to something that looks like gameplay. And so, yeah, thanks for checking in, and see you next time.